we're starting the right triangle chapter. So anytime you talk about right triangles, you pretty much have to talk about Pythagorean Theorem first. So the first thing I want you to do is draw yourself a right triangle, kind of off here to the side. So right triangle. Go ahead and put the 90-degree mark in. Okay, Richard? Not feeling good, or? Oh, yeah. Okay. If you need to leave, let me know. The formula, a squared b squared equals c squared. That's my formula. But we kind of have to figure out how that formula applies to the triangle I drew. So anytime we have a right triangle, the C is always the longest side. So the C is going to be this side, which is known as the hypothesis. Sorry, hypotenuse. Hypotenuse. So this C is always going to be the longest side, which, like I said, is the hypotenuse. Hypotenuse. The A and the B are the two legs. It doesn't really matter which one's which, because they're both the legs. So I'm going to put an A here and a B here. So we have a right triangle. To find the missing side of a right triangle, we're going to do the A squared plus B squared equals C squared. And C has to be the biggest side. We all okay through there?
Yeah.
Now I'm going to do 4 problems with you, and then there's 4 problems on the back that you're going to do yourself. So first one. So like I said, the formula isn't going to change. My formula is going to be a squared plus b squared equals c squared. Now looking at the triangle, which side is the biggest side of number 1?
X.
The x. It's always going to be across from the 90. So here's my 90. So if you're not sure which one it is, you can kind of think of it as an arrow. And that's going to always point to the C. The A and the B are these two sides. And the A and the B can be switched. But the C has to be the biggest side. Otherwise, it isn't going to work.
So the longest side?
Always, yes.
Wait, A and B can be switched?
Say it again?
I said A and B can be switched.
Yes.
Does it really matter?
Because they're both legs. The C has to be the biggest. It definitely matters. The A and B can switch.
Yeah, no, Mr. Duvernay said that they couldn't last year, so. I know, that's why I was like, they can be, that's why I was like, yeah.
As long as you get the C as the last one, you're okay. So 5.8 squared plus 9.7 squared equals x squared. There's my equation. That's my sum.
Oh, so this ain't very hard.
This isn't bad.
Alright, it might be hard for some people.
So 5.8 squared, 33.64 plus 9.7 squared, 94.09 equals x squared. Add these two numbers together. 127.73 equals x squared. Now, same as with the last thing we were doing, we have an x squared, so I can't leave it like that. So my last step is going to be to take the square root.
Oh.
So to take the square root, 127.73.
63. No, that's like 8 point something.
11.3
Oh, that's right.
equals x. Because 11 squared is 121, 12 is 144, so it's somewhere between 11 and 12. So our missing side, which in this case was the longest side, is 11.3. That was my missing side. You okay there?
Yes.
Number 2, what's my longest side?
X.
It's x again. So we're going to mark that as a C. The A and the B are these two. So I'm going to put an A here and a B here. I always like putting them in order, small, medium, large. But like I said, the A and the B can kind of switch as long as the biggest side is C. So we get 7.9 squared, 13.1 squared equals x squared. So this one's pretty much set up the exact same way as the one we just did. Yes?
Is X always gonna be C?
No. The next two you'll see. So 7.9 squared, 62.41. 13.1 squared, 171.61 equals x squared. Add my two numbers together like I did before, and I get 234.02 equals x squared. So my last step, same as before, is going to be take the square root. Well, I know 15 squared is 225, so it's going to be a little bit bigger than 15. Square root 234.02, and I get 15.3. And again, don't round off to the very end. And then your last number, go ahead and round off. So 15.3. So my first two examples, those had the hypotenuse being the missing x. Are we okay with ones that look like that?
Mm-hmm.
Moving on.
Okay.
Now, number 3 you'll see is a little bit different. Number 3, what's my biggest side? Me. I emailed you, Renee, what your intern grade is. So you should have said. I couldn't because I was worried about what I was doing. Okay. Yeah, so basically everything from remote is coming from me. Yeah. And then starting back in person is coming from him. So number 3, what's the biggest side?
X.
Not on number 3.
15.1.
Yeah.
Right, because here's my 90. Remember, it kind of points to the biggest side. So this time, the C is an actual number.
Yeah.
The A and my B are these two. And again, it doesn't matter which one's which. So AB. So A squared, 6.9 squared. B squared, that's the one I didn't know. C squared, I do know.
Okay, this isn't hard either.
All right, come on.
So on the first two, everything I needed was on the left-hand side, and I could just put it all in. On this one, my X is kind of stuck in the middle of everything. So I'm going to go ahead and square this guy. 6.9 squared, 47.61. Bring down the X squared. 15.1 squared, 228.01. But now to solve for X, what's my next step?
You gotta subtract 47.
Right, now most of the time I don't show this step at this point, but I am on this one. Subtract the 47.61, because I got to get this X by itself. So subtract 47.61. So I get X squared equals 180.4. Now you're going to take the square root the same as we did before. So the big thing is because we needed one of the legs, I'm going to have to subtract those two numbers, then take the square root. And I got 13.4. So 13.4 was my missing value.
Would you have to say 13.4 squared or just leave it as 13.4?
It's just 13.4. It's not square. We took the square root. And number 4. What's the biggest number?
9.3.
9.3. So that's the C. So stick a C here. Your A and your B are these two. I'll put A as the X, B is this one. But like I said, those two can be reversed. So X squared plus 5.7 squared, 9.3 squared. There's my values. 5.7 squared, 32.49. 9.3 squared, 86.49. Subtract the 32.49. We get an even 54. So when I take the square root of 54, I get 7.3. So 7.3 was my missing value. So you've got about 8 to 10 minutes. I want you to work on the back four. When you get the back four done, let me take a look. I'll tell you if they're right or wrong. I'll go ahead and mark it in the grade book. And then we will start on the other one. If you don't get done in that 8 to 10 minutes, then you'll have to finish it for homework. These are recorded.
I can't walk alone.
So, what type of triangle? Acute, obtuse, or right? So, break it kind of up into 3 sections. Right? This one I'm going to say obtuse. This one I'm going to say acute. Well, the right we already know, because that one comes out equal. A squared plus B squared equals C squared. So that one comes out equal. Now, obtuse, if this is my right triangle, 90 degrees here. Obtuse is going to spread out, so therefore this side here is just going to get bigger. So for obtuse, A squared plus B squared, I'm going to leave kind of a spot here and say C squared. And if this C squared is bigger, it is obtuse. So if the longest side ends up bigger than it needs to be, that means it stretches open even more, and it's going to be obtuse. Acute, again, I'm going to put A squared plus B squared. Kind of leave yourself a spot. C squared. Now, if this is equals a 90, and I squish it down, this opening here is just going to get smaller. So therefore, if this number is smaller, it is acute. So that's how we can use the Pythagorean theorem to determine if it's a right, obtuse, or acute triangle. Are we okay with it? Now I'm going to do 4 of them with you again. So let's take a look. Now, same as before, you've got to make sure and get the numbers in the correct spots. I was like just going small, medium, large. So since 6 is the smallest one, I'm going to put an A next to that one. 8's the next one, so that's a B. 10 is the biggest side, that's a C. So just look at the 3 numbers, kind of just put them in order. Small, medium, large. So now, I'm going to go A squared plus B squared, and again, I'm not sure what it's going to be yet, so I'm going to leave a spot, C squared. So 6 squared plus 8 squared equals less than greater than 10 squared. Again, I'm going to have to figure out how it actually compares. Here.
Oh, never mind.
Okay. 6 squared is 36. 8 squared is 64. 10 squared is 100. So when I add these last 2 numbers, I ended up with 100 compares to 100.
Equal.
It's equal. So because it is in fact equal, the triangle is going to be right. Because it actually worked out.
We need to show work, right?
I want to at least see this line and this line.
Okay.
So give me your formula and the 2 numbers you get at the end. So number 2. Again, make sure it's in order. Small, medium, large. Small, medium, large. 8 squared, 12 squared. I want to see how it compares to 13 squared. That's my set. Now, if you're using a calculator, you might be able to just type in 8 squared plus 12 squared. Hit the equals, you get 208. So that's a 208 there. Because your calculators know order of operation. Most phones don't. If you try to type it in, it's probably not going to give you right if you're using your phone. 13 squared is 169.
It's a cube.
It's a cube because you're going to look at the hypotenuse, or what you think is the hypotenuse. In this case, it's too small. It's smaller than this one, so therefore it's a cube. Because it kind of had to squish down as opposed to being a right triangle. Are we okay on number 2?
Yes.
Moving to 3 and 4. Number 3. ABC, small, medium, large. 6 squared, 8 squared, leave a spot, 13 squared. The left-hand side, 6 squared plus 8 squared is going to give you 100. 100 even. 13 squared is 13 times 13, which is 169. Well, in this case, this number is bigger. So since it's bigger than it needs to be a right triangle, what type of triangle did we create?
2.
Obtuse. Because that longer side is longer than it needs to be. So it's obtuse. And one more example, then I'll let you go. Well, work on the worksheet. 5, 12, 13, ABC. 5, 12, 13. 5 squared is 25. 12 squared is 144. 13 squared is 169. Add your a squared and your b squared together, you get 169. So it's right. It's exactly what it needs to be. It's identical numbers. So therefore it did work. So it is a right triangle. So now go ahead and work on the rest of this worksheet.